My parents demanded I sell my dead grandfather's farm for my sister's $75,000 destination wedding. Then his lawyer revealed the secret he'd been hiding. Hey friends, got a sec? Drop your thoughts in the comments and hit subscribe. It's quick for you, but it really means a lot to us. Alright, let's dive into today's story. Original post. I never thought I'd be writing something like this, but I need to get this off my chest and maybe get some perspective from people who aren't emotionally invested in my family drama. My name is Alex, I'm 32, and 6 months ago, my grandfather Samuel passed away. We were incredibly close. I spent every summer at his farmhouse growing up, learning everything from fixing tractors to grafting apple trees. While my younger sister Melissa preferred staying in the city with our parents, I was out there with Grandpa Sam, watching sunrises from the porch and learning what he called the real stuff that matters. When he passed, he left me his farmhouse and the surrounding 40 acres. It's not a mansion, it's a modest 3-bedroom house built in 1952, but it's been lovingly maintained. The land has an apple orchard, a vegetable garden, and the most beautiful views of the valley you've ever seen. More importantly, it's where all my best memories live. Here's where things get complicated. My sister Melissa got engaged last year to Ryan, who comes from money. His family has been not so subtly pushing for an elaborate destination wedding in Italy. We're talking about a $75,000 affair, flying out 150 guests, renting a villa, the whole production. Ryan's parents are covering their side, but Melissa and my parents are expected to cover our family's portion, which comes to about $35,000. My parents, Thomas and Patricia, are comfortable but not wealthy. They both worked as teachers their whole lives and have a decent retirement saved, but dropping $35,000 would seriously impact their financial security. They've already contributed $10,000, which was supposed to be their entire wedding gift. 2 weeks ago, my parents invited me over for dinner. I should have known something was up when Mom made her famous pot roast. She only does that when she needs to soften bad news. After dinner, they sat me down in the living room, and Dad started talking about family obligations, and thinking about what Grandpa would have wanted. Alex, my mother said, holding my father's hand, we need to talk about the farmhouse. My stomach dropped. I knew exactly where this was going. Melissa's wedding is important to the family, Dad continued. And that property is just sitting there. You live in your apartment in the city, you have a good job. The farmhouse could sell for at least $400,000 in this market. You want me to sell Grandpa's house to pay for Melissa's wedding? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Mom leaned forward. Not the whole amount, honey. Just enough to help with the wedding costs. Maybe $50,000? You'd still have plenty left over, and it would mean so much to your sister. The thing is, I don't just have a good job. I'm a software developer who's been working remotely more and more. My plan was to move to the farmhouse full-time within the year and work from there while slowly restoring the property and maybe starting that sustainable farming operation Grandpa and I always talked about. I'm not selling Grandpa's house, I said firmly. That's when things got ugly. Dad accused me of being selfish, Mom started crying about how I was choosing property over family, and then they called Melissa into the room. She'd been waiting in the kitchen the whole time. Alex, Melissa said, and she had clearly been crying, I'm only getting married once. This is my dream wedding. Ryan's family already thinks we can't afford our share, and it's humiliating. Grandpa loved both of us. He wouldn't want you to hoard everything while I'm struggling. Struggling? I couldn't help but laugh. Melissa, you drive a BMW. You live in a luxury apartment. You're not struggling, you just want a wedding you can't afford. That's not fair, she shot back. Ryan's family has certain expectations. If we can't meet them, it reflects poorly on all of us. Do you want people thinking our family is cheap? That we can't provide for important occasions? The argument escalated from there. Melissa accused me of always being Grandpa's favorite and said it wasn't fair that I got the house just because I pretended to like farming. Mom kept trying to broker peace while simultaneously suggesting compromise solutions that all involved me selling or mortgaging the property. Dad just kept shaking his head and muttering about disappointment. Since that dinner, I've been getting daily texts from all three of them. Melissa sends me links to articles about toxic individualism and how family wealth should be shared. Mom sends guilt-trippy messages about how stressed she is and how this is affecting her health. Dad is giving me the cold shoulder, only texting me to say things like, I hope you can live with yourself. The extended family is getting involved too. My aunt called me yesterday to say I was being unconscionably selfish and that Grandpa would be spinning in his grave if he knew I was putting a house over my sister's happiness. My cousins are posting passive-aggressive memes about family loyalty on Facebook. The pressure is getting to me. I lie awake at night wondering if I'm being selfish. The house is just sitting there empty while I'm in my apartment. Maybe I could sell just a portion of the land? Maybe I could take out a loan against it? But then I remember sitting on that porch with Grandpa just a year ago, when he knew he was sick. He grabbed my hand and said, "This place has been in our family for 70 years, Alex. Don't let anyone talk you into giving it up. Land is the only thing that lasts." I feel like I'm being torn apart. I love my family, but I also loved my grandfather and want to honor his memory and his wishes. Melissa is my only sibling, and this is destroying our relationship. My parents are basically not speaking to me except to apply more pressure. Am I the asshole for not selling my inheritance to fund my sister's wedding? Should family come before property? I genuinely don't know what's right anymore. Update 1, 2 days later. I wasn't expecting such an overwhelming response to my original post. Thank you to everyone who reached out with support and advice. Some of you suggested I look into the legal documents more carefully, and one commenter who said they were an estate attorney mentioned something about protective clauses that rang a bell. I decided to reach out to Robert, my grandfather's lawyer, to get a complete copy of all the estate documents. What I discovered has completely changed everything. Yesterday morning, I met Robert at his office downtown. He's been practicing law for 40 years and handled all of Grandpa's affairs. When I explained the situation with my family, his expression went from professional neutral to deeply concerned. "Alex," he said, pulling out a thick folder, "I think you need to see the complete will and trust documents. Your grandfather was very specific about his wishes. It turns out that Grandpa didn't just leave me the farmhouse in a simple inheritance. He created what Robert called an ironclad protective trust, with multiple safeguards. The key provisions include: 1. The property cannot be sold for 5 years after his death without forfeiting the entire inheritance, which would then go to a conservation land trust. 2. The property cannot be mortgaged, used as collateral, or financially leveraged in any way during those 5 years. 3. Any attempt to circumvent these provisions would trigger an immediate transfer to the secondary beneficiary, the Land Conservation Trust. 4. After 5 years, the property becomes mine outright, but until then, I'm essentially a steward who can live there and maintain it but cannot liquidate it. But here's the part that really got me. Robert pulled out a handwritten letter that was attached to the will, addressed to me. With shaking hands, I read, "Dear Alex, if you're reading this with Robert, then I'm gone and someone is probably pressuring you about the farmhouse. I knew this would happen, son. I've watched your parents' relationship with money and status over the years, and I've seen how they indulge Melissa's expensive tastes while you've always been content with simpler things. This farm isn't just property, it's our family's history. It's where your grandmother and I raised our children, where you learned to drive a tractor, where we planted that oak tree when you were 10. It's worth more than money, and I know you understand that. I've structured this inheritance to protect you from having to make an impossible choice between the land and family pressure. For 5 years, you can't sell it, even if you wanted to. Let them be angry at me, not you. I'm dead, I can take it. By the time those 5 years pass, I hope the dust will have settled and your family will have found their own solutions. Stay strong, Alex. The land will take care of you if you take care of it. All my love, Grandpa Sam. P.S. Check the old coffee tin in the barn rafters. I left something there for you." I sat in Robert's office and just broke down. Even in death, Grandpa was protecting me. Robert handed me tissues and said quietly, "Your grandfather came in here 3 years ago, right after Melissa got engaged. He said, 'Robert, that girl's going to have a wedding that costs more than most people's houses, and they're going to try to make Alex pay for it with my farm. Make sure that can't happen.'" After leaving Robert's office, I drove straight to the farmhouse. I climbed up into the barn rafters and found the coffee tin. Inside was $10,000 in cash and another note, "For the wedding gift when Melissa gets married. This is your contribution. No one can say you didn't help. Love, G.S." I took photos of all the documents and sent them to our family group chat with a simple message: "I legally cannot sell or mortgage the farmhouse for 5 years. Grandpa made sure of it." I also found $10,000 he set aside specifically as my wedding contribution. "That's all I can offer." The response was immediate and explosive. Dad called me within minutes, furious. "He did this on purpose. He always favored you. This is manipulation from beyond the grave." Mom was crying so hard I could barely understand her. "How could he do this to our family? Didn't he trust us?" Melissa's response was the worst. She sent a voice message that I can only describe as a shriek. "This is so typical. Even dead, Grandpa is ruining my life. You probably knew about this all along. You and him probably planned this together to humiliate me." I responded calmly. I didn't know about any of this. But I'm grateful Grandpa protected me from having to choose between keeping his legacy and keeping peace in the family. I have $10,000 for your wedding. If that's not enough, then Ryan's family will have to understand that not everyone has unlimited funds. Melissa blocked me on everything. My parents aren't answering my calls. But strangely, I feel more at peace than I have in weeks. The decision has been taken out of my hands. I can't sell even if I wanted to, and somehow that makes everything clearer. Update 2, 3 weeks later. The family situation has been evolving in unexpected ways since my last update. After the initial explosion, there was complete radio silence for about a week. Then things started to shift. It began with my cousin Jennifer reaching out. She's always been the family diplomat, and she asked if we could meet for coffee. I was hesitant but agreed. She told me that the extended family had been having some heated discussions about the whole situation. "Look, Alex," she said, stirring her latte, "I owe you an apology. When I called you selfish, I only had your parents' version of the story. They made it sound like you were sitting on a goldmine and refusing to help out of spite. They didn't mention that Melissa's wedding costs more than most people's annual salary." Apparently, Jennifer had done some digging and found out exactly what this Italian villa wedding involved. She was shocked. "Alex, they want to fly 150 people to Italy, put them up for 3 days, and have multiple events. The flowers alone are budgeted at $8,000. The flowers! My entire wedding cost less than their flower budget." Word started spreading through the extended family about the actual cost and scope of Melissa's wedding. The tide of opinion began to turn. My aunt, who had called me unconscionably selfish, called to apologize. "I thought we were talking about maybe helping with a normal wedding, not financing someone's Instagram fantasy," she said. Then, 2 weeks ago, something major happened. Ryan's parents, Richard and Barbara, requested a meeting with my parents and Melissa. According to Mom, who finally broke her silence to tell me about it, it was brutal. Richard, Ryan's father, is a successful investment banker, and he didn't mince words. "We've been watching this family drama unfold," he apparently said, "and we're concerned about what we're seeing. We offered to have the wedding at our country club with our extended family because that's within our means. This destination wedding was Melissa and Ryan's idea, and we made it clear from the beginning that while we'd contribute our share, we wouldn't bankroll the entire thing." Barbara added, "What concerns us more is the pressure you're putting on Alex to sell his grandfather's property. In our family, inheritance is sacred. We would never dream of pressuring one child to sacrifice their inheritance for another's luxury wedding. It shows a concerning lack of boundaries and financial responsibility." They went on to say that if the wedding was causing this much family strife, perhaps Ryan and Melissa should reconsider their plans. They even suggested that starting a marriage by causing family rifts over money was not a good omen. Melissa was devastated. Ryan, who had apparently been unaware of the full extent of the pressure being put on me, was furious with her. They had a huge fight, and Ryan told her he was embarrassed that his parents now thought poorly of our family. Mom called me crying after that meeting, but for the first time, her tears seemed more reflective than manipulative. "Alex," she said, "I think we got carried away. Patricia, Ryan's mother, asked me if I would have sold my mother's jewelry to pay for Melissa's wedding, and when I said no, she asked how I could expect you to sell your grandfather's house. I couldn't answer her." The real breakthrough came last weekend. Melissa showed up at my apartment unannounced. She looked terrible, like she hadn't slept in days. "Can we talk?" she asked. We sat in my living room, and for the first time in years, we had an honest conversation. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," she said. "Ryan asked me why the wedding was more important than my relationship with you, and I couldn't give him a good answer. He said his parents are questioning whether I'm marrying him for the right reasons, and that really hurt." She admitted that she'd gotten caught up in trying to compete with Ryan's wealthy friends and their elaborate weddings. Social media had made it worse. She'd been following all these luxury wedding accounts and convinced herself that anything less would be settling. "But you know what the really sick part is," she said, starting to cry. "I don't even want half this stuff. I don't know most of the people we're inviting. I'm stressed about learning Italian for the ceremony. I'm terrified of giving a speech in front of 150 people. I've been so focused on having a wedding that looks impressive that I forgot it's supposed to be about marrying Ryan." We talked for hours. I told her about all the memories I had at the farmhouse, about my plans to move there and start the sustainable farm Grandpa and I had dreamed about. She admitted she'd always been jealous of my relationship with Grandpa but had been too proud to try to join in. "I called him boring," she said, laughing through her tears. "I spent all those summers at theater camp or the mall instead of at the farm. And now I realize I missed out on really knowing him." By the end of our conversation, Melissa had made a decision. She was going to tell Ryan she wanted to completely change their wedding plans. "I want something smaller, something that actually feels like us," she said. "And I want to use that $10,000 from Grandpa not for flowers or some ice sculpture, but for something meaningful." Update 3, 6 weeks later. I'm writing this update with a completely different energy than my previous posts. So much has changed in the last 6 weeks that it feels like a different lifetime from that first desperate post I made. After Melissa's visit, she and Ryan had several long conversations about what they really wanted. Ryan admitted he'd also been feeling overwhelmed by the wedding plans and had been going along with it because he thought it's what Melissa wanted. His parents' intervention had been a wake-up call for him too. They made the decision to completely scrap the destination wedding. When they told both sets of parents, the relief was palpable. Richard and Barbara were supportive, saying they much preferred a wedding that brought families together rather than tore them apart. My parents, somewhat shamefaced after everything that had happened, offered their full support. But here's where things got really interesting. Melissa called me a few days after their decision and asked if she could come see the farmhouse. "I haven't been there since Grandpa's funeral," she admitted. "I think I need to see it again." I picked her up last Saturday morning, and we drove out together. It was the first time we'd spent real time together, just the two of us, in probably 5 years. As we drove through the countryside, she asked me about my memories of Grandpa, and I found myself sharing stories I'd never told anyone. When we pulled up to the farmhouse, Melissa just stood there for a moment, taking it in. "It's smaller than I remembered," she said, "but also more beautiful." We walked through the house, and I showed her all the little things Grandpa had built or fixed over the years. The kitchen cabinets he made by hand, the window seat where he used to read, the porch swing he built for Grandma's 60th birthday. In the back bedroom, we found a box of old photos, including ones of Dad as a kid helping Grandpa with the farm. "Look at Dad," Melissa said, holding up a picture of our father at maybe age 10, proudly holding up a basket of apples. "He looks so happy. When did he stop coming out here?" We spent the day exploring the property. I showed her the apple orchard, now heavy with fruit, the vegetable garden that needed weeding, and the old barn. As we walked, Melissa suddenly stopped. "Alex," she said, "what if we had the wedding here?" I was stunned. "Here? At the farmhouse?" Her eyes were bright with excitement. "Think about it. October is perfect for a farm wedding. We could set up in the orchard, have the reception in the barn. It's beautiful, it's meaningful, and it's family. It's what Grandpa would have wanted, the family coming together on the land." The more we talked about it, the more excited we both got. We spent the rest of the day planning and dreaming. Melissa was like a different person, animated, creative, and genuinely happy in a way I hadn't seen in years. When we told Ryan the idea, he loved it immediately. "This is perfect," he said. "This feels like us." His parents were thrilled too. Barbara actually got emotional when she heard about it. "A family farm wedding," she said. "That's what weddings should be, about family and history and love, not about impressing strangers." My parents took a bit more convincing. I think they were embarrassed about the farmhouse not being fancy enough, but when they saw how happy Melissa was, they came around. Dad even got emotional when we told him we'd found those old photos of him as a kid on the farm. Final update, 4 months later. I'm writing this final update from the porch of the farmhouse, my home now. Yes, I finally made the move last month, and I'm working remotely while starting to implement plans for the sustainable farming operation Grandpa and I dreamed about. But first, let me tell you about the wedding, which happened 3 weeks ago. The transformation of the farm was a true family effort. For the first time in years, our entire extended family came together for a common purpose. Dad, who hadn't done physical labor in decades, spent weekends helping me repair and paint the barn. He even got emotional when we found his initials carved into one of the beams from when he was a kid. "I forgot how much I loved this place," he admitted one evening as we watched the sunset from the porch. "I got so caught up in suburban life, in keeping up with everyone else, that I forgot what really mattered. Your grandfather would be proud of you for protecting this place, son. I'm sorry I tried to make you give it up." Mom threw herself into the wedding preparations with a joy I hadn't seen from her in years. She and Melissa's future mother-in-law, Barbara, became fast friends as they planned the decorations together. They decided on a rustic elegance theme that highlighted the natural beauty of the farm rather than trying to cover it up. The $10,000 from Grandpa went toward practical things: renting tables and chairs, hiring a local caterer who specialized in farm-to-table cuisine, and getting a tent in case of rain. Ryan's family covered the photographer and music. My parents handled the flowers, all $800 worth, sourced from a local flower farm. The total cost? About $18,000, less than a quarter of the original budget. 2 weeks before the wedding, Melissa asked me for a favor. Alex, you knew Grandpa better than anyone. Would you walk me down the aisle with Dad? I know it's unconventional, but I feel like Grandpa should be part of this somehow, and you're his representative. I was so moved I couldn't speak for a moment. Of course, I finally managed. The wedding day itself was perfect. October provided crisp, clear weather with the leaves just starting to turn. The ceremony was held in the apple orchard just as the late afternoon sun was filtering through the trees. Melissa looked radiant in a simple but elegant dress that she'd found at a boutique for a fraction of what she'd originally planned to spend. As Dad and I walked her down the aisle between the apple trees, I felt Grandpa's presence so strongly. This was what he'd wanted, family together on the land, celebrating love without pretense or extravagance. Ryan's vows included a promise to honor the family history and land that had brought them together in a new way. Melissa's vows included an apology to me that had everyone in tears. I want to thank my brother Alex for protecting what really matters, even when I couldn't see it. And I want to thank my grandpa Sam, who somehow knew exactly what we all needed, even after he was gone. The reception in the barn was magical. We'd strung lights from the rafters, and Jennifer's husband, who DJs as a hobby, provided the music for free as his wedding gift. The caterer used apples from our orchard in several dishes, which made everyone feel connected to the land. Instead of an elaborate wedding cake, we had a dessert table with pies made by various family members, including an apple pie using Grandpa's own recipe. During the toasts, Robert, Grandpa's lawyer, surprised everyone by standing up. It turns out Melissa had invited him, and he'd driven 2 hours to be there. Your grandfather was my client for 40 years, he said, but more than that, he was my friend. Sam would be so proud today. Not because you had a wedding, but because you found your way back to each other and to what matters. This farm has seen 3 generations of love stories now, and Sam always said the land would take care of the family if the family took care of the land. The most powerful moment came when Dad stood to give his toast. I owe both my children an apology, he began. I lost my way. I forgot the values my father taught me about family, land, and what real wealth means. I pressured Alex to give up his inheritance for something that, in the end, none of us really wanted. Sam, Dad, if you're listening somehow, thank you for being wiser than all of us. The party went until late into the night. At one point, I found myself standing outside the barn, watching everyone dancing and laughing inside. Melissa came up beside me and took my arm. You know what the best part is, she said. This is so much better than Italy would have been. This is real. This is family. This is us. Ryan's parents, Richard and Barbara, joined us. Richard shook my hand. You've got something special here, Alex. Don't ever let anyone convince you to give it up. And thank you for sharing it with us. We've been to a lot of weddings, but this one means something. As for Melissa and me, our relationship has completely transformed. She and Ryan come out to the farm most weekends now. Ryan's actually really interested in sustainable farming and has been helping me set up a greenhouse. Melissa has started a blog about simple living and authentic celebrations that's gaining quite a following. She often jokes that her failed Instagram wedding led to something much better, a real life. My parents have also changed. They come out every Sunday for dinner now, and Dad has started helping with the vegetable garden. He's even talking about writing a memoir about growing up on the farm. Mom has started canning again, something she learned from Grandma but hadn't done in 30 years. Last week, while going through more of Grandpa's things, I found his journal. One entry from 3 years ago stood out. Families are like plants. Sometimes they grow in directions you don't expect. Sometimes they need pruning. Sometimes they need support to grow straight. But if the roots are strong, they'll always find their way back to the sun. The farm will bring them home. It always does. He was right. The farm brought us home, not just to the land, but to each other. Looking back at my original post, when I was drowning in guilt and family pressure, I barely recognized that person. I thought I had to choose between my family and my grandfather's legacy. It turns out, protecting the legacy was exactly what my family needed, even if they couldn't see it at the time. To everyone who told me to stand firm, to check the legal documents, to trust my gut, thank you. You gave me strength when I had none. To those who shared their own stories of family pressure and inheritance drama, you made me feel less alone. And to Grandpa Sam, wherever you are, thank you for knowing us better than we knew ourselves. Thank you for protecting me, for protecting the farm, and ultimately, for protecting our family from our own worst impulses. The land is taking care of us, just like you promised. And we're taking care of it. The 5-year restriction has 4.5 more years to go, but I'm no longer counting down. By the time it lifts, I'll be established here, the sustainable farm will be running, and hopefully, there might even be a fourth generation of our family running through these apple orchards. Sometimes the best gift you can give someone isn't saying yes to what they think they want, but protecting what they actually need. Grandpa knew that. Now we all do. Epilogue, added after original post. Since this story has resonated with so many people, I wanted to add one final note. Last month, we held our first Harvest Festival at the farm, opening it up to the community. We sold apples, vegetables, and Mom's canned goods. Melissa and Ryan organized games for kids in the barn. Dad gave tours telling stories about the farm's history. At the end of the day, as we counted the modest proceeds, Melissa laughed and said, "You know, we made more today selling apples than I spent on my actual wedding dress." There's a lesson in there somewhere. There is indeed. The best things in life, family, land, heritage, love, can't be bought, sold, or leveraged. They can only be tended, protected, and passed on. The farmhouse still stands, modest but proud. The apple trees still grow. And our family, tested by greed and healed by truth, is stronger than ever. Sometimes, the greatest act of love is saying no. Grandpa Sam knew that. Now we all do.